Hi everyone, and welcome again to After the Final Set. My name is Luke, and as always, after a gym session, I get pretty reflective, and therefore, I wanted a space to share my thoughts after a gym session, so I can share those reflections with you and anyone else who it could be helpful for. Today, I'm a little bit exhausted after my gym session. I have to admit, I woke up today, and it felt hard. It felt hard to train today. I don't know, sometimes I sleep, 6 hours instead of the 8 hours my body probably wants. And that probably plays a big factor into it. And nevertheless, still made it here. Trained, wasn't my best gym session, but it got me thinking about what brings me here, especially on days like this. And I came also to an interesting thought. And that interesting thought was actually repetition. Repetition, creating habits, super powerful. If I reflect on just the basics of repetition, when we train, especially if you're training in a gym, you literally count repetitions in the form of how many reps you do, but also how many sets you do, how many times a week do you come, what is your, your goal divided into 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 6 months, however you measure it. Repetition is ingrained into training. And I think there's a fundamental reason why repetition is ingrained into your training. That's because repetition is the number one way to condition your mind, to condition your body to be able to master something. That seems pretty obvious. Maybe what's not as obvious as that is how repetition can be used, or in a sense abused, in your life. One word that comes to my mind about repetition is when you're repeating something that's good for you. So for example, if you're repeating something like going to the gym, if you're repeating something like eating healthy, if you're repeating something like playing an instrument, whatever it may be, if it's something that positively affects your mind, then that conditions your mind further to accelerate in that way. Alternatively, you might have some other habits, like for example, what I think a lot of us may suffer from, fear, which might be derived from anxiety, or you might have a sense of obsession towards a certain goal or a certain object, or whatever it may be. And the power of repetition there can be very detrimental. Take fear as an example. If there's something that you fear, then I think it's only natural that it's on your mind. And when you come into contact with other people, it may also be natural for you to consistently repeat those stories of fear. Whether it be repeating your fears about your safety in your suburb, repeating your fears about your ability or inability to get a promotion at work, repeating your fears about anything. Not saying that you shouldn't talk about your fears. I think it's very, very important that you talk about your fears. I think it's important that you talk about everything that's going in your mind. But just focusing on this type of behavior when it comes to repeating stories, sometimes you have to be careful that you don't condition your mind to focus directly on those fears. Something that happened to me personally recently is I'm visiting Australia at the moment, and I have to admit it's a terrible time at the moment. Well, I'm not saying it's a terrible time in Australia, but we've had a few unfortunate incidents. Not unfortunate, just bad incidents happened recently. It's very uncharacteristic for Australia, but we recently had a shooting in Bondi, which was horrific. There's no other word to describe that. But what I noticed is I started to become more conscious about maybe how safe Melbourne, Victoria, my suburb, our state, our country is. And I also noticed that I started spending a little bit longer when I was on Instagram on videos where they spoke about safety, and they spoke about these type of topics, whether it be home invasion or attacks or something like this. And naturally how the algorithm works, it pushes more of that content towards you. So I think we live in an age where repetition can be exaggerated or it can be amplified by the social media that we consume. And not because social media is bad, but because that's how the algorithms are designed. They're designed to fulfill your interest, and therefore if you show a particular interest in something, it's going to push more and more content towards you. That's why it's, in my opinion, never been so important as it is today to be aware about what you are prone to repeat. Like I said, social media, everything around us can be a really good thing when you repeat the right things. So I also get a lot of content which is pushed about the gym, which is also pushed about my career, because I'm interested about those topics and they have a positive effect on me. But I'm also conscious mentally about what are some of the negative things that are going into my mind and how the media that we consume today may push even more of that content towards me. Even taking out the media aspect, I find myself also being conscious about which stories I use and repeat to the people I talk to. Sometimes I've repeated stories 2-3 times about things that I'm afraid of to people who honestly were not interested in it. I was just repeating it because it was on my mind and I wanted to get it off my chest. And whilst it was nice to get it off my chest, it also did reinforce the fear inside of me. And so therefore, you do need to be conscious. And I think if you are going to talk about your fears, then you need to talk about it with the right people in a constructive format. If you don't do that, then all it does is it ends up keeping you in a state, so it prevents you from being able to move past that fear. That's the negative side of kind of repetition and what you need to be aware of. There's also a positive side of repetition, and this is something that I've actually used several times on a professional basis, not so much on a personal basis, but more so on a professional basis. If there is something that you fundamentally believe in, you're going to have to put it out into the world more than once. I'm not saying that you spam people with a message that you believe in, but I'm also saying that you need to be able to be consistent. You need to be able to continue to put a message out there, and you need to understand that people need to be able to consume your message multiple times before they physically understand it. Sometimes I found early in my career that I put concepts forward and I got frustrated when people didn't understand them. It's because for me it's been positively repeated in my own head because I've been thinking about it, working on it, refining it, and then only when I was confident with it did I start communicating it. But the people who are receiving that message has just heard it, and in that situation it's unfair to assume that they can consume it in one go when it took me hundreds of repetitions to be able to consume. So I think what I wanted to talk about today was the power of repetition. Was bringing it back to my original thought why I even started thinking about repetition. I was not in the mood to train today. I got out of bed, frankly I was just not feeling it, but I have been training regularly. I have been training each and every day. I have a routine in my head, and to a certain degree that helps me to get here. And once I'm here, I'm so grateful and thankful for that healthy repetition in my life, for that healthy repetition that built the habit. Equally, I'm very aware, or I try to be very aware of negative things which are repeating in my mind. I'm not saying that they don't belong there. I'm not saying that you should think about forgetting them or getting rid of them, but you have to be aware of what they are, just in case the repetition of thinking about them, talking about them, I hope not really acting on them, but you got to make sure that those things don't prevent you from fulfilling what you need to do in life, that they don't prevent you from helping others, from being able to go that next step in your personal development, in your professional development. So I think the most important thing these days is to be really, really aware. Leverage repetition where it's healthy and good in your life, and control repetition where it is negative in your life or where it starts to prevent you from being the best version of yourself. Anyway, as always, my name is Luke. This is After the Final Set. If this is helpful, feel free to share it. I hope you have a wonderful day. All the very best. Ciao.